All right, what is up? 100 words. This is Stephen, your host from Phantology, and with me this time I have Jake, and we're talking Last Argument of Kings, the conclusion to the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is my second time through in preparation for Wisdom of Crowds, which comes out in actually just like over a month now because we're getting into August, and this is Jake's first time through. So it was a reread for me, and I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but it has been fun to read it a second time and see how my opinion has changed after reading the rest of the books. And so, Jake, what is your opinion on the conclusion to the First Law trilogy after your first read?
I guess my summarized opinion would be a great sequel. I don't feel like it's a conclusion. So I don't really understand. I understand there's a lot more to read, and I'm glad for that. But I can't really see it as a conclusion to a trilogy.
Because the characters' fates are not kind of like tied up nicely in a bow.
Not so much that, it's just the overall, I feel like it ends with more of a revelation, which makes me want more than ending in any sort of resolution, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's for sure not an ending to the world, and it's natural to feel that way because he has written five more books in the world, with the sixth coming out in
Yeah.
September, and there's also a book of short stories. So there is a lot more, and so
Hmm.
these hooks like are not just put there. There there are
Yeah.
there, like there are some very good books that follow this one up.
Yeah. I did, knowing that it's the First Law trilogy and that there's another trilogy and there's some standalones, I was expecting more of um, a more complete story here and then maybe like a new story later. But I think after reading this, I think I'm just gonna have to shift my mind to have more of the mindset of these are just it's just one series, one long series, as opposed to multiple series. Like I guess I went into it more thinking it would be like the difference between Mistborn Era One and Era Two. Those are
Mm,
definitely self-contained stories,
yeah,
and it seems like it's going to be more like um, I can't think of another series.
yeah. Is
Just
there a good
just
analogy here?
an ongoing series. More, yeah,
The so it is a trilogy in that after these first three books, as you get into the standalones focus on different parts of the world. Some characters you've seen show up again, but the main
yeah,
characters, the majority of the main characters, are going to be new players. And then when you get into the next trilogy, the Age of Madness, there's a time gap, and some characters are still around, but it again mostly focuses on new characters, but the essential conflicts don't change too much.
I guess like there's definitely um, a three-book arc to the character arcs. Like they definitely each character has an arc in this trilogy, but it ends with it being very like, okay, what's the next step? It doesn't end with it. Like I said, there's no real resolution at the end. It doesn't feel like any sort of conclusion, even for these characters. I mean,
Okay,
Logan especially,
well, and let's not and
his
let's not do spoilers
no, not
quite yet,
not
but
not
yeah.
not really spoilers, but just his story ends very similar to how his story begins. And so
Right,
you can't really see it as, okay, and this was the story of Logan's character, you know?
right. And as does Glocta's story ends very
Yeah,
similar to how it begins.
yeah, true. Yeah. I feel like there's a little more resolution for him, but yes, very similar to how it
Yeah,
began. Maybe
Abercrombie
that's how it is
really
for all the
likes.
characters. Yeah, that's kind of how it is for all of them.
We'll have to talk specifics of
Yeah.
the endings when we get there, but I'll say this, Abercrombie really likes structure in his writing, and he does it in like a lot of kind of funny ways. And one is just like the overall broad structure of the character arcs are very cyclical.
Yeah,
There's some
yeah.
progression, a lot of regression, as well as the character, and to me that makes them seem really human and makes them great
Hmm.
characters.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing characters. I'll still say the characters are definitely the best part of the series. It makes me just want more. And I know there are more books, but like, yeah, I just want more.
Well, I'm excited for you to keep on reading.
I'm kind of nervous that what I want more of, I won't find, but I'll have to keep reading to find out.
All right, let's jump off into spoilers then. I honestly I don't know who's going to be listening to a podcast about the third book of the series if they don't want spoilers. Maybe if you've only read the first two and you're wondering if you want to read the third, but come on, you should definitely read the third. So when you say that there's some things that you're looking forward to and you're not sure you're going to get them, what are you talking about?
Well, it just feels like it honestly, it feels like book one was, it should have been like a prologue to books two and three, which are pretty much like one continuous story throughout.
Okay.
And so I really want to get like we learn more about Baez's real intentions and more of the backstory there. I'd really like to dive into more of what his plan is moving forward and
What intentions are unclear to you? Because he pretty clearly states he just wants power, he wants to be in charge, and he'll do it by any means necessary.
right, but like to what end? Like what is once he gets all the power, what does he want from there? Is it just as simple as he wants power, or does he have some sort of like he obviously wanted to get the seed in order to bring some sort of
Yeah.
magic back into the world to empower himself? And
A lot
was
of
it
the first
just was it
trilogy, he said, "Oh, I was just up reading books for a while and I kind of forgot about the Union." But then a lot of his motivation in the first trilogy was his rivalry with Kalul,
right?
right?
Yeah, which that didn't come to an end. He didn't kill Kalul,
No,
right? So he didn't even kill Mamun. I mean, he
Pharaoh
defeated
did.
him. Yeah, and Pharaoh
Yeah.
was the one who killed him. But I mean, so there's still like, obviously he's going to want to do that. Does that entail taking over Gurkul or what? And like, why did he just want to release magic into the world again just to like recharge his abilities basically, or does he have some sort of like goal? Like is there something we learned so much about the maker and how he studied under the maker? Is there something specifically
Mm-hmm.
he wants to make, or is there some sort of like is he trying to do anything, or is it really just as simple as it might be just as simple as I want power? I do. Side note about Bias, I do love how he gives Giselle this like lecture about when you live as long as he does, like the whims of men seem so like everyone just seems like a child. And I love the irony that like the summation of his motives has just been childish as well. Like biases
Yeah.
himself, like just a big child, the big baby at the same time.
And I love the glimpses into Baez that you get where like throughout, he's not the wizard that's so self-assured and always he doesn't really have it under control, right? Like he wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
sure if the whole seed plan was going to work, which is interesting with with how powerful he seems to someone like a Glocta or a Giselle, who just
Yeah.
Baez is all powerful, right? But we as the reader know that he is vulnerable, or he could be maybe defeated, or he has some deficiencies in some areas.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, he's wrong about things, but also speaking of Glocta, as we see him interact with Glocta, he has so much money, which apart, like even if he weren't
Mm-hmm.
magically powerful, he has enough money to do basically whatever he'd
Right,
want as well in the world.
right.
So
And
as
he
he's
seems,
really he's done a good job like hedging his weaknesses with all
oh
these
yeah,
sub plans.
yes, yes, and he's totally fine just saying, yeah, if my magical abilities are going out, kind of like they were towards the beginning. Now he's recharged them to some extent with the seed. It seems like he's younger and appears more vibrant, but he's fine saying, I've got all the money. I'll just throw money at these problems if need be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His playing for to get Giselle on the throne was so amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
And I think you, when we reviewed the blade itself, didn't you kind of make a note that you thought it was interesting the way that he was acting throughout the duel, and like it seemed there seemed to be something
well,
more there, and he
I
interacted with
mean,
Giselle's father.
that was the thing. Him interacting with Giselle's father. That's what was weird. I'm like, there's got to be some sort of payoff there. I wasn't expecting. Um, I don't know. It's hard to. It's like so obvious now that he was basically saying, like, he's basically coming to say, "I told you I'd come back for Giselle to do what I want with him, and now that's what I'm doing." So
Mhm.
I can't remember if that's what I thought it was originally. I definitely didn't see the king plot coming at all. Um,
And it was a good,
and
yeah.
I didn't like I knew there's something there, but I was like, why is he making Giselle win? I was like, was it just so that he could take Giselle with him? But I feel like he could have taken him with him regardless. I did not see it at all being that, oh, we're going to make him the champion and then set up this other
Mhm.
farcical rebellion for him to quell. So then he's also seen as a hero of the common people and the nobles. And I didn't see that coming at all.
So, do you think Giselle is really the royal bastard?
I don't. I don't. It's kind of unclear. I feel like at times it's hinted that he is, at times it's hinted at as he is. I mean, at the end, Baez basically says like, "You're nobody. You're just whoever I say you are. I can't believe you believe that." But also, I
Yeah.
feel like he could. I feel like Baez would more likely find a bastard and then set up this plot than he would just find some random child to set up the plot. But I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter because his power only comes from Baez's word.
Yeah, I don't know either. I could see it going either way, but like you say, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think kind of going back to what we were saying about how Baez really didn't have everything all figured out. I think, and like you said, how he hedges his bets. This was probably just something that toward in the blade itself, he's like, okay, Giselle seems like there could be something here, and he's already set up this whole like this guy. I could make him the king. I could do it in these ways if needs be, and it turned out that it worked out well for him. But I bet he had some other contingencies if events
Yeah.
had gone in different ways.
Yeah. I mean, Giselle definitely is a bastard though, right? Like that is for sure. It's just whether he's the king's bastard or not.
Is it for sure?
I mean,
I don't remember.
how else? I mean, that part didn't really seem to be under debate in the book, but I mean, that doesn't mean it is for sure. He
You're right.
definitely,
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he again, he could have been made up the whole thing. He could have just bribed or blackmailed Giselle's dad somehow to do that, but yeah.
Okay, so we jumped all the way to the end with the Baez conversation. In my
Yeah.
notes, I listed out the characters we want to talk about. Baez, obviously, it's important by the end, so that's appropriate. We jump there. We'll go back to Baez maybe a little bit later if there's
Mhm.
anything else. But let's keep on going with Giselle. So to kind of like walk through some things from him, let's start with the reunion with Audie at the beginning, because I remember you had some thoughts on how their relationship might go before they were hanged. And so I wanted to get your reaction based off of how it went.
I mean, this ties into the Glockta if you want to talk about him, but I called it that Glockta and Artie would be a great couple.
You did. I
Um,
don't know if you explicitly said that they would get married and everything, but you did say you
no,
wanted to
I
see
didn't.
more. You thought
I
there
just
was
thought
something there.
I just thought they made a great team.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I predicted they'd be together at all. And this is kind of getting away from Giselle, but the moment when he ends up proposing, I was like so torn. I was like, is he gonna propose to her? Is he gonna kill her? I really don't know right now. Like, and then the longer the
Mhm.
scene went, I was like, okay, this has got to be a proposal because like meta analysis of why is the scene dragging on so long and to build up this tension otherwise. But back to Giselle's reunion with Artie, I thought it was kind of like this like dry rom-com humor of you finally get the girl and then you realize, oh wait, is this the girl I really want to be with? Giselle kind of had that moment. And I mean, it's a classic example, and this is so real to characters of him leaving. He kind of romanticized the idea of Artie. He didn't really know her when he'd fallen for her. And so he had this false idea of her that was put on a pedestal. And so when he comes back and sees her strengths and weaknesses, he's kind of taken by surprise. But I was glad to see, I was interested to see how much of his character growth from before they're hanged would stay with him. Because after finding out that the journey was for nothing, he kind of got upset. But I was like, I think he still like retained some of that growth. And I think he did. The fact that he came back to Artie, realized, whoa, this isn't really what I thought it would be, but then decided, no, I'm going to do this anyways. I think that said something to his character growth. And then throughout, we can see he hasn't done a 180, and he's got a ton of curveballs thrown at him in this book. But I feel like he's still trying to. He has his moments of pompousness, but he's still trying to be that better man. He's definitely not the same pompous person he was in The Blade itself.
And he seems like a bit of a king. Like towards the end, he's trying to dig people out of rubble to find survivors, and he's visiting the hospital. Definitely a better king than what's his face, who the last one, the last king was, or Reynaud.
Any of his heirs.
Actually, maybe Reynaud would have been okay. We never really got a glimpse at Reynaud. He seemed to be an okay guy.
He's the one who was assassanated.
Right.
What was the name of the one that was killed?
Ladislaw. Definitely better than
Ladislaw. Yeah. Man. It's interesting with Giselle because his character growth was sparked by Baez, but then Baez is the stumbling block at the end in order for him to enact all this character growth. It's like you started this and now you're like, wait, this doesn't serve my purpose anymore. So he never really he hasn't had a good chance to act on this character growth and really become this better person fully, because at every moment he's shut down by Baez
and Logan. I think Logan was a big, impetus for his character growth as well, which is interesting with Logan's character too.
Yeah. Baez's personality didn't really do anything, but just the fact that Baez took him on the journey. That's all that he did for that.
One of my favorite kind of small moments from the book is when Logan's walking through Adjua after the big fight.
I was just going to mention this part. Yeah.
Okay. Kind of mooning over things, being like, I'm a crap guy again. And he comes up to Giselle and he helps him pick up the pillar or whatever it was. And he says, Giselle, and am I an evil man? And Giselle's like, you're the best man I know. Yeah. And that I think just speaks so much to where both of their characters are at.
It was one of those moments where it was really good advice at the worst, a really good response at the worst possible time. Because at that point, Logan needed to be told, you need to keep going on the path you've been trying to go on to be a better person. But instead he was told, oh no, you're a great person. And so kind of limits his opportunity for growth there.
I mean, I don't know if anything that Giselle would have said at that moment would have really... Do you think anything Giselle would have said would have changed what happened with Logan?
I don't know. I don't really understand Logan. I don't understand a lot of his motivations in this book. We can kind of, I guess, transfer to his story for a minute. I don't see him in our notes. You had written down. Did you? I thought you wrote somewhere Logan becoming evil. Oh, reverting to a bad guy. I didn't really see him as a bad guy. Him taking power again, I don't think that was a good idea. And I don't understand why he did. I understand why he became more ruthless. And the way I saw it was he had been trying not to be this ruthless person, but everyone needed him as this ruthless person. And so he kind of got to a point where he's like, if this is how people need me to be, why am I trying to change? This is, as much as people hate me for it, this is all I'm good for kind of mentality. So I understand that reversion into being not as good of a person, but I don't understand
Yeah.
why he was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be king of the North, basically. Like,
Didn't it
I
kind of
felt
just
like
happen?
it
Like
did, but
he,
I felt like he could have been like, no, we're not doing that. We're back to how we were before,
well, who
or
else would
he
have been
could,
king?
well, before they didn't have a king, before, what's
Oh,
his name?
sure. Before Bethod.
Bethod, before Bethod started doing that. So they could have reverted back to that, or he could have just been like, this isn't why I'm here. Like, I thought it would have been a little more in his character to say, like, I'm not here to rule. I'm just here to be the Bloody Nine when you need me, you
Mm.
know? So I don't really understand his motivations there. I still don't see him as a terrible person. I don't know if I was supposed to come to that realization at this point yet, because he still has the sense of remorse. He's just, I feel like all the terrible things that he's done in the series have been through the lens of, I'm trying to do these good things, but this is the only way people know how to use me, or people want me to act, or I know how
Yeah.
to act in order to get these good things done.
And then before they are hanged, he's such a good person. Like he is the really the only positive force for the whole
Which is all,
company.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for the
Yeah.
whole company, yeah, yeah, and I
And here you
loved,
see a big 180 where now he's killing his friends and small children.
yeah, I mean, I guess how much can he be blamed for that when he's in the Bloody Nine state? Like, it's not something he would
That's
want
my
to do.
question. Yeah.
It's not something he would want to do when he's in his in sound mind, you know.
That's my whole question around Logan's the Bloody Nine thing. It's more than just like, okay, I'm all ramped up. Now I'm going to start killing people. It's like people have speculated on this because I don't think it's super clear, but it's either that it is like something that he can choose to bring on, or it's some kind of demon possession thing from the other side. And I don't understand why it's affecting him specifically, or if it's something that he can choose to bring on or not. It's
Yeah,
tough.
I don't know, and this might be a too hopeful way of looking at it. I don't see it as him being able to choose it at all. I think I think it's either supernatural and maybe due to like some sort of demon blood or curse or something, or I think it's like a multiple personality type thing,
Mm-hmm.
or schizophrenia, something like that. Um, or I guess I don't know what this would be, or it's something that he's like constantly fighting to hold back, and then when he's in the middle of a stressful situation, he just doesn't have the capacity to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't really seem like something he would want. I don't know.
I
It
mean,
it
it's
just
it's a
like when
useful tool. It's a useful tool at times.
what who did he kill? Big
Told,
Tree,
told, no,
no
big
Thunder.
tree.
Uh,
Three,
Tolduro.
three trees died in the last book.
Yeah,
Tolduru, the Thunderhead, right?
yeah, Tolduro. Like, there's no way he would want to kill Tolduro in like a normal time, you
Right.
know.
True.
And when he's the Bloody Nine, he just kills whoever's around him, and he has remorse for it afterwards.
And he doesn't seem to be afflicted by pain either. So it seems like it's
Yeah,
more than a multiple personality thing. Like there's some kind of supernatural thing going on. And if that's the case, like maybe I give his character a little bit of a pass.
it just doesn't seem intentional either way, whether it's supernatural or not. And I guess you could be like, he's responsible in the sense of, well, why'd you put yourself in a situation that would bring that out of you? But
Mm-hmm.
also, you could chalk that up to just casualties of war, I guess, and justify it that way. Like, we need the Bloody Nine on our side, and that just means you're going to have more uh, casualties. Like, everyone who is on his team or on his side knew that that was a possibility. It's not like it was something that wasn't known to them, but they wanted him there anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I,
like, how much can you be? How how justified are you at being upset with him when you knew this was a very real possibility and like part of his package?
There's a few times in the First Law books where Abercrombie shows us what I'm going to call friendly fire, where we
Yeah,
have people on our side killing people who are, on the same side. Maybe not our side, but, Union people killing Union people or Northmen
yeah.
killing Northmen in the heat of the battle. And I think it's interesting the characters that you see do this. I can definitely think of some times in the Heroes, which you'll get to one of the standalones, where this happens, and it's kind of a similar. I mean, it's not a similar situation with the Bloody Nine, but similar in terms of like an embattled character where we're not really sure, good or evil. And I think Abercrombie uses this idea of killing your own side as a way to really show that. Baez also obviously a lot of destruction, a lot of self-inflicted stuff, but he doesn't care at all. Like he actively
Yeah,
just
that is
says
that
like,
is
these are little people. I care nothing for them.
yeah.
They're yeah.
That's a completely different situation in my mind. Baez willingly does something destructive over and like there's totally a way he could have done that to minimize casualties and he chose
Mhm.
not to. Like he just it didn't even cross his mind to worry about that.
Because at
Whereas
the
Logan's
he's losing it. He's like, I'm greater than Juvens, I'm greater than Aos, as
yeah,
he's unleashing the power and destroying his own. Like, if he cares so much about Adjua and the Union, and like
yeah,
that's his thing,
yeah.
he's like actively just destroying it. He doesn't care at all really about the
I
state as
think
long as he's in charge.
I think they mentioned that he did more damage than the Gurkish army did, like to Adjua. Like he was a bigger force of destruction, especially if you add up the like radiation type sickness
Yeah,
thing after the
right,
fact. He's
right,
definitely
right.
caused more casualties.
And he definitely
Um,
doesn't care about that either.
yeah, I do think when we speak of whether Logan's a good guy or not and how much responsibility does he has this like he does have this ignorance that could be you could call it like willful when he's fighting Bethod and Bethod's like, I don't know why you're so upset. Like you were like
Mm-hmm.
you were the worst things that Bethod that had happened under Bethod's reign were caused by Logan.
Right.
And and so like in Bethod's mind, it's like why like and I guess we don't really even know why did Logan stop fighting for him? Like what was the cause of the sudden change of heart? Do we know?
I think
Was
we
it
do.
was it just that he tried to kill him?
It might have had something to do with using the Shenka as well. I don't remember exactly.
But just I loved that scene where you're like through Logan's eyes and he's like, no, that's not how it was. But you can tell like that's
Yeah.
definitely how it was. And even he should be able to like understand and see that for the truth. And it's kind of vague whether he did understand it. If he didn't, though, it's definitely a like willful ignorance. Like, no, I refuse to believe that.
Oh. There is an event that they talk about um, where I guess this is like slight spoilers for the short stories, but um, in the short stories, there's a flashback story from Logan, a younger Logan under Bethod around that time period,
Mm,
where one of the events that they talk about, Logan and Bethod are talking and they go over some things. One of these things is what that short story is about. And I think it gives some good insight into Logan's
yeah.
character.
I think it definitely, I thought Bethod, I don't really understand what his overall goal was. I thought his goal of reclaiming their like the England as part of their
Yeah.
land. I thought that was like a fine motivation. Um, Uniting the Northmen. I mean, again, that's one of those things where it's like, well, is that necessary? You know what I mean? Like, what is the real
Mm-hmm.
purpose of that? It could be to strengthen them.
And
Um,
Bethod had been influenced by Baez
but
as well.
yeah, definitely. I mean, the only explicit thing we got was Baez told him to um he told him just to let Logan go, right? Or something like
I
that.
believe so, yeah.
Because he was gonna kill Logan and then Baez told him to let him go.
I think it's something like that. I don't remember or know those details though.
But Betha definitely had to be being used by the witch too, right? And who knows like what her maybe she was
Yes.
just a pawn of Baez as well. Like, I don't know. But from what I got, Bethod wasn't the tyrannical leader as he was made out to
Hmm.
be. I mean, he probably had a bit of tyranny in him, but it seemed like after this duel he has with Fenrir, you realize that the worst of Bethod was due to Logan, and then after Logan left, it was a much more civilized place. But somehow Logan had shifted all the brutality that he did under Bethod
Uh,
solely under Bethod's responsibility.
it's cool how the perspective that you get in the blade itself through Logan's eyes is slowly undone. By the time
Yeah,
you get to the end of the series, you realize, wait a second, this is not exactly how I thought it was going to be. And I wrote this quote down from Blacked Out. Blacked Out at the very end says to Logan something like, I don't know if this is word for word, but he says, nothing is worse than the villain who believes he's the hero, which I think
yeah,
is ironic for Blacked Out to say because he clearly believes himself to be the hero at this point because he's getting rid of Logan, who he
yeah.
perceives to be the villain, who thinks he's the hero. And so as the reader, you're like, who is the villain? Who is the hero here? And really, no one is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely would say Logan was a villain before the trilogy, but I can't really paint him as a villain during this trilogy. He's definitely I feel like he's reformed at least a little bit and he starts to regress at the in the third
Hmm.
book, but I don't really consider him a villain at this point.
I think that's a reasonable, yeah, that's a reasonable opinion to have. What is one of the biggest unanswered questions, obviously, at the end of the trilogy is what's going to happen to Logan, who we last saw, jump off the cliff in, like you said, the same way the series
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah. Um I don't know. I was really sad at his and Pharaoh's last encounter because I thought they could have been good for each other.
Uh-huh.
Although that would have just been another life of violence, so who knows how that would have been for him. Um, I really don't know. I have like no idea. I could see him. I just have no idea how many of these characters are going to continue on in the next stories, and so I could see him just being this like nomadic guy that people run into every once in a while, becoming a thing of legend, or I could see him going back to the Union because he knows he has a friend in Giselle there, and
Yeah,
Dogman's
yeah.
there for now.
Yeah, right. Dogman is there. He's been told to stay there. Yeah, Raffo.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, that's Logan. Let's
yeah.
go on to
Well,
Galacta. Yeah, or yeah,
I I do want to say the duel with Fenrir or Fenris.
Fenris, the feared.
I keep saying Fenrir. Fenris the Feared. That was so cool. I did think there would be a little more to Colonel West cheating.
Oh,
I thought that would be
when he like loosens some of his armor or something.
yeah. I felt like I felt like Logan still could have won without that little bit of help.
Yeah,
Um, but
probably.
that was fun to see
It's like
that battle with
maybe Abercrombie's just like we need a West viewpoint right here. Let's give him something to
yeah
do.
yeah um yeah
Yeah, it was, and it was a good payoff from the time in the first book when we saw Fenris come in to the Agriont, and he's kind of imposing, and then he kills three trees in book two, and now he's finally full potential here,
yeah
and Logan takes him down somehow with some help.
yeah. Well, and if I remembering right, it was because of them killing the witch too, right? Like
Yeah,
that was the
right,
main. Um,
right, exactly, because he like cuts his arm off and
and
maybe
then
just
attaches it back.
yeah, he's like, okay, this guy is unstoppable
Yeah,
until they do take down Karib.
and basically taking her down just kind of stunned him, right? So that way he could cut through his body into the untattooed part.
Yeah, I think it just like deactivated whatever she was doing, which is some
Yeah,
kind of shielding.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
I wish we would have gotten more explanation of her and him. I guess we got an explanation of him, but more of her. So I'm hoping for something
agree.
like that in the future.
Agree for sure.
But
Okay, Galacta.
Glocta,
A lot happened. You read a lot of viewpoints. This
yeah,
maybe wasn't my favorite Galacta book because the intrigue and the politics kind of seemed to go on for a while, where
I
it's just
liked
like
it.
a little interchangeable with what he's trying to do at certain times. You liked it the whole time?
I liked it the whole time because it felt like there was the stakes were getting higher and higher the whole time. The pressure is going up where you could just tell he was becoming like more and more overwhelmed. All these debts to all these masters are coming due around the same time, and he's like, okay, what do I do? I liked how
Mm-hmm.
him and Artie kind of talk about like, oh, you need to find like another master
Right, right. That was funny.
to play off of that. He's just such an enjoyable perspective to read through. I think I enjoyed his the most.
The dark humor throughout, even with Baez, even confronted with Baez at the end,
Yeah,
he's just like, "All right, man, stop gloating. Just shut up and kill me already if
yeah,
you're gonna do it."
yeah. That's yeah. I love that about him. He's one of those people who just lives like 100%. Like he gives his all to it, but also it's like this interesting dichotomy of like almost apathy towards life,
Mm-hmm.
but also like not because of how much he gives to everything he does. He really lives life to the fullest as much as he can due to circumstances, you know. But
Sure.
and
What did you think? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I like the plots that were happening, like him going to the university, and then I got a vibe of the Bartimaeus trilogy, which you still need to read.
I read book one.
Yeah, you need to read the next ones. There's a scene that seemed very similar to this at the very end when he comes in and sees Salt and the lector guy trying to summon some demons, right?
Yeah.
They kind of left this not clear as well. Baez was very dismissive of their work, but I
Yes.
wonder if there was
These
any
noobs over here. What are they doing?
yeah. I wonder if there was any legitimacy to their plan. Like if they weren't interrupted, would they have summoned something? I don't know. It would have been interesting to see, but it was cool. I don't know. That whole thing was it was really well done. I had no idea what was going on at the university and all these plots, but I thought
What about
it all came together good.
Severard and Frost being traitors or being spies?
Um, it's really sad. It made sense. It was sad to see him torturing Severod.
Mm-hmm.
Um, wait, so Severod was a spy for Baez, and
For
then
Valentin
Frost
Bark.
was
For
yeah,
Salt.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then Frost was for Salt.
Right.
I feel like the Frost betrayal was a little harsher, in my opinion. Maybe it's because he's just been so stoic and seemed so loyal to Glocta. But that was
At
another
least
good moment for
Glocta,
Artie.
yeah, and at least Glocta got some action there with his cane sword.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool to see that. Makes sense. You know, if he was this duelist, of course he's going to um, protect himself as much as possible.
And like you said, it was sad to see him torturing Severide. He didn't seem to be
He
too
didn't enjoy it.
emotionally. He didn't. Well, I don't know if he ever really enjoys torture. He's so
I feel like
detached
there's a
from it.
significant. I feel like there's a significant difference between his like his more laissez-faire attitude towards like when he's torturing
Yeah.
Ruse in the beginning, who was another friend. Like there's a little bit of like sympathy there, but I feel like there was more with Severod.
Yeah, it was personal.
But it might have also been just the fact that it was so personal, where he and the fact that he was like probably thinking, "What am I going to do after this?" Since he was betrayed. But
I think the parts with Glock I enjoyed the most were just kind of his band of mercenaries and Casca running around
yeah,
and kind of making things happen at the end. And then just the end of the book with the intrigue there with Baez and and what it's setting up. Galacta is now kind of like the most powerful guy in the Union, but even he is underneath Baez's thumb. And so what's going to happen here? And it's nice to see, Galacta again, full circle with Ruse at the end. And you can see him being put into a position where it's like he almost kind of has a happy ending, even like he's in a much better position. He's with someone who makes his life just a little bit more bearable.
I think he definitely has a happy ending. His annoying, incompetent master was traded out for Baez, who's very competent. And it seems like there's more transparency between Baez and Glokta than there ever was with Sult and Glokta. So
but that transparency is not necessarily like good for Glokta. It's all like the transparency is Baez saying, I am the power and you will do what I say, or I will destroy you.
But I feel like when you have some sort of master like that, the transparency is better than, also this might be like some Stockholm syndrome that I'm kind of feeling, as much as I think Baez is terrible, but it was nice to see somebody recognize Glokta for how competent he is, which it didn't seem like any of the other people he worked under really recognized that.
Yeah, true.
So Baez recognizing that, and then also being more upfront, like, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, and you're going to do this for me. I feel like that's a more manageable role to be in as Glokta than before. And then he gets the girl, and Pike doesn't kill him.
Hopefully it works out for him. And she's got Giselle's child.
Right. Oh, yeah, that was an interesting...
Yeah.
Poor Giselle. Man, he's in a terrible position.
Yeah, I feel bad for that guy. At least his wife is going to pretend to love him a little bit.
I feel bad for her too. She's like,
yeah,
they're both just in a terrible situation.
Yes.
Her situation's definitely worse than his.
Yeah, Glokta probably does have the happiest ending of all our characters. Yeah.
I think the only the last thing that could have come back to bite him was the Pike thing, and that ended up turning out well. I didn't recognize that is not the connection I thought I saw with Pike. I thought it was going to be like Pike betrayed Glokta on the or Glokta somehow betrayed Pike when they're in the army or something like that. That's what I thought the connection was going to be.
Because you brought that up, I remember in our last review that the Pike did say that he served under Colonel Glokta.
Yeah, and I thought the thing was going to because I kept saying watch out, that guy Pike is a dangerous man. The other lectors up there who were in charge of the Inquisition up north. And so I thought it was going to be maybe Glokta betrayed him, and so he betrayed Glokta and caused Glokta to go to the Gurkish or something like that. I thought there was going to be really bad blood due to that. There's still very bad blood, but I'm a little more I definitely think Pike is justified in being upset, but also he was a traitor to the crown, wasn't he? Basically.
Not
that justifies it, but
not too much of a traitor though. It wasn't that bad.
I guess what I mean by it is if it wasn't Glokta who would do that to him, some other lector would have done it to him, it wasn't.
So you think Pike's going to be able to? You think Pike's going to be able to separate that and be oh, it wasn't that personal. All right, I'm working for him now.
I think he's going to hate Glokta for a long time. And I think if given the chance, he'll probably betray Glokta.
It's kind of similar to the situation that Shivers has been in, where it's is this guy going to stab Logan in the back or not? He's got this longstanding grudge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shivers, I've heard we see more from him, but he was a very interesting character towards the end. I liked how he was screw you, Black Owl. I'm not going to do your killing for you, basically.
Yeah, Shivers, you're definitely going to see more of. He kind of has, I'll just say this, he has an arc throughout all three of the standalones. He kind of ties the standalones together to some extent.
Okay.
So he's a pretty popular character.
Yeah. Yeah. Loved Glocta's whole storyline. It just felt like he was overwhelmed the whole time and then barely made it out on top, which was cool to see.
All right, so Pharaoh, not a whole lot from her. She's, more of like a secondary viewpoint character. I think my favorite moment from her was when Giselle became the king and she's just up there laughing. Like, what are these stupid pinks doing? He's the king.
Stupid pinks, yeah. Yeah, I feel like she also was one who had a happy ending. I liked how hers ended. It was this like bittersweet and then like, okay, I'm happy for her. It was almost like a tender ending for her where you felt
I guess it's what she wanted. Like she wanted the
right,
power to go
yeah.
and get vengeance, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to end up being a happy thing for her.
Well, I guess what I mean is as it ended, when it first like seemed like things were ending and she was hearing the voices of the demons, and I was like, shoot, like she's gonna go crazy. And that's sad that Baez just used her passion for vengeance and like really used her up until she was mentally unstable because she's hearing these demons. And I thought that was how it was gonna end. And so I like had this like it really made you feel for her. And then at the end, her last scene where she like basically says like, I'm sick of doing things for anybody else. I'm going to ignore these voices too and just do what I want. I thought that was a really good ending for her. And now she's like super powered somehow.
Yeah.
Like
she,
Ptolemy.
She's able to, very similar to Ptolemy. She's able to take down Mamoon pretty easily. She like crushes his skull and then she has ice powers as she's walking away.
And I guess that's because the other, like, I can't remember if they call it hell or not, but it's like cold. And
the other side there. Yeah, she's been touched by the demons.
Yeah,
big win for her in closing the box of the seed because she very easily could have, Baez completely irresponsibly leaves this loophole for demons to come into the world and probably destroy everything. So good on her for not doing that.
Yeah. Was that he was aware and didn't care to tidy up that loophole, or did he not even know that was a possibility? If he did, was he like, oh, I'm sure I can save myself? Like, hard to know.
Really hard to know. I would vote that he
seems like he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, it seems like if he was aware, like he cares enough about his power to think like, oh, this could be really bad for me, so I got to make sure this doesn't happen.
Yeah, it seems like if he were aware of it, it doesn't seem like he has the amount of power necessary to be aware of that and not care that it was a possibility.
Right. But on the other hand, if he was aware of it, would he have not done his plan with the seed? Because he needed to win.
I think he would have, but I think he would have instructed Pharaoh or had some sort of contingency lined up to make sure that the demons weren't allowed in. Whereas he didn't even like seem aware that it was.
He probably would have involved sulfur somehow. Sulfur is always kind of his contingency plan.
That, I mean, we'll get to that when we talk about Baez again, but that was another thing where I did not see that coming at all.
Sulfur being an eater?
Sulfur being an eater and all the things that he did for Baez throughout the story.
Right, with the different colored eyes, always. You have to watch for that.
I didn't catch that at all. They mentioned that with the rebel leader, and I assumed
the Tanner guy.
The Tanner, and I was like, I wonder if this is like a sign of someone being put under a like charm by Baez, because it was obviously something had messed up there. And I was like,
it was such a bizarro situation where like they're negotiating, all of a sudden they're like, we're good. And the Tanner's second in command or whatever gets really upset. And
he's like, these are worse deals than last time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was trying to figure out, did Baez put a spell on the guy to start the rebellion and then end the spell when he got there, so that way he didn't care, or vice versa? But it seemed like, if I remember right, that guy was always sulfur, right?
Yeah.
Like he started the rebellion as Sulfur.
Actually, I'm not sure if he started it or if he took his place at some point, but
Yeah. I can't remember. Did he just capitalize on it, or did he like orchestrate the whole thing?
Yeah, not sure exactly. He probably, again, it could have been something that he started up as a contingency, like in case I need to. I don't know. I mean, maybe he didn't
Just a
have as
way to
many.
make Jazal look better.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly what it
Yeah.
was, but his master plan definitely came together.
Yeah. And I mean, part of it was, I mean, probably half of the plan to get Jazal on the throne was bribery, and the part of bribing the voters to vote for Jazal because he's not really a threat and because he has a lot of money.
Right.
Speaking of eaters, though, I called that Quai had been eaten. I had no idea it'd be Ptolemy at all. I was not seeing that coming. But it makes sense because he had, ever since he had been eaten, there was like this personal, things were very personal with whoever had taken his place. I just thought it must have been a follower of Khalul, like some fanatic, like, no, you've betrayed Khalul, and or I guess Khalul says he betrayed Yana, I can't remember, honestly.
Which
he
guy?
killed
Juvens.
Juvens. I can't remember all the names.
Well,
He killed Juvens.
That's kind of like, did Baez kill Juvens? He always said he didn't, but
it's pretty clear now that he did. And that's what Khalul has always said.
And that's what what's his face? What's the guy who he leaves behind in the House of the Maker? The other mage that
what is his name?
Yulwei.
Because he asked him. Yulwei asked him again.
Yeah, did you?
And he said no, but then when he's talking with Ptolemy, he basically admits to it, in my opinion. I think it was when he's talking to her. There's at a point where he basically admits to it.
He never 100% admits to it, but he just kind of gets to the point where he's like, what does it matter? Like,
yeah,
who's dead is dead and it's done. And
yeah. But cool to see her come back. And I'm pretty sure she's not dead, right? Like,
she was just shut up in the House of the Maker. The door was shut. Yulwei was left there. I mean, I'm sure he's died. Ptolemy probably killed him.
Yeah, what was it? Was there something else going on that was killing people in there as well? I feel like it wasn't just.
Well, they had got the seed and they got the divider thing. But it was mostly Ptolemy causing problems from what I remember.
Was it? I don't remember. Or was like the whole building collapsing on itself? I don't remember.
No. I mean, the Gurkish were definitely coming in. This was all during the whole climax part.
Yeah, I thought there was some sort of some disaster like inside the House of the Maker being caused by like the building falling apart, but maybe not. But I hope I see more of her as well. It'd be cool to see her kill Baez at some point. Nice full circle, but that might be wishful thinking.
All right. Few more characters we'll let's just talk about one other plot line. So West and Dogman, both up in the north, fighting away up there. West becomes Lord Marshal unexpectedly when Burr finally dies and has a few nice wins, but then just dies with the wasting sickness. Actually, it doesn't. Maybe that's a slight spoiler. He doesn't die on screen, but he is dying, and yeah.
I had hope that there'd be some sort of cure until everyone I've talked to just said, "Oh yeah," and then he dies, and I was like, pretty sure he didn't just die at the end of the book, but I guess that means he's dead.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you haven't read further. I mean, that might have been a slight spoiler, but like it was clear there was no coming back from the sickness. Like he was dying.
I thought there might have been like a magical cure for him. That's really too bad. It's good to have him see Artie and kind of reconcile with her though. Before the end.
Yeah, that was good to see, and it was a little disappointing because West was kind of the common man hero who we all kind of liked, except for the bad episode with the abuse. Obviously, hard to justify that, but still, like throughout, he had done a lot of good things, and he seemed seem to be a better person than the average goodness of the other people out there.
It's interesting. I feel like his goodness was better than a lot of people's goodness, but also his bad times were worse than a lot of other people's
Yeah,
bad
that's
times.
true. Like
So
his rage and temper caused. Yeah.
I think on average he's about the same as most of the characters.
Okay.
If
But
you can
he's
quantify that.
his variation is just very large.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
He's
agree with you
a
there. Yeah.
sharp bimodal distribution.
Ooh. Okay.
Um,
And then Dogman,
yeah.
again, kind of around for most of the same events. The whole high places plan I thought was interesting because it's basically Lord of the Rings, right?
Helm's Deep, kind of waiting for the third
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
It felt like more of a small scale to me, but yeah, that's basically what
Yeah.
it was. Um,
I think there are a
uh,
lot of Lord of the Rings tropes that Abercrombie's used throughout this trilogy that he
I
has
don't feel
turned on
like
his.
they didn't feel like them when I've read them, but the more I think about it, yeah, there are.
Like the whole quest thing and
Yeah. Well,
before
yeah,
they were
that was
hanged,
very on
obviously.
the nose. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, this just seems a lot like Helm's Deep, smaller scale, like you
yeah.
say. But come on, they're up there, no retreat. The army's coming in. They're fighting away for days and days, and finally the cavalry shows up. You've
Yeah.
heard the story before.
I like the Hillman guy.
Kremiki
He's so
fail.
weird. Yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, that dude is weird.
Yeah. I liked how Dogman kind of served the purpose of seeing Logan,
Mm-hmm.
like seeing the complicated person that Logan is. Like he still has loyalty towards him, and he'll shut down people who challenge Logan. But also, he's really mad at Logan for being who he is. But
He
also,
gives
like,
us a good perspective on Logan. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
but I also feel like he's part of the problem in the fact that they're like when Logan like met up with them again, they're like, sweet, we have Logan, and like we're gonna use him to defeat
Mm.
Bethod. So he's mad at who Logan is, but he happily uses him for
It
what
does
he
seem
is as
interesting,
well.
right? Because they talk about how all of these guys that follow Logan are part of his crew have all fought against him and lost, and Logan has spared their lives. So maybe the fact that he spared their lives in the past, oh, that seems interesting to me. Like how if he was in Bloody Nine form, he definitely would not have spared their lives. So he clearly was not in those duels. So he seemed to be like a decent guy when he was fighting those. Sparing lives doesn't seem like a normal thing to do in the North.
I'm the way I envision him before is he must have been someone who liked being the Bloody Nine for a large portion of his life, and then got to the point where he was sick of it. And I assume the crew he created was towards the tail end of that,
Hmm.
like more not reveling in the violence.
But it does seem like you say with Dogman, it seems kind of odd that he's kind of forgotten everything that Logan brings to the table and is like only
Yeah,
remembering the good aspects of Logan's leadership. And so yeah, when they're like, sweet, we got Logan, you're thinking, okay, like did you just forget about your whole history with Logan? Because this
yeah,
guy's got a dark side.
it's an interesting like psychological um I get thought, I guess. Just with like all the Northmen who were fighting against Bethod in general, I feel like everyone hated Logan pretty much because they had all had family members who had been killed by Logan back in his prime evil days.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they wanted to use him, and I think this is like a very makes it very real where you're like, I'm glad this guy's on my team, and I want to use him to kill the other team. But also, if he dies in the process, I'm going to be happy because I hate this guy, you know? And I feel like that's how most of the Northmen view him. And I don't think they have a right to really be upset with the
Uh-huh.
damage he causes at the end because they're using him as that tool. But I think it's very understandable. And then Dogman and his crew is different, obviously, because it's like they've gotten over that point to where they don't hate him anymore, besides Black Dow, but he hates pretty much everyone.
He's
I don't
blacked
know.
out. Like he says at the end, I'm not called White Dow, I'm Black Dow. I'm dark.
Yeah,
My personality is black and evil.
yeah. I just think it's a very interesting like relationship, and I think it makes it very real. And it just makes you debate like, well, who can you really blame them, or can you really blame Logan when they're using him for this? But then also, can you really blame them since they kind of are forced to use him? He's their best bet, and he's already caused so much hurt and pain for them.
Yeah, to make a sports analogy, he's kind of like the guy that you really like when he's on your team, but like the rest of the league all universally dislikes because he's just annoying to play against, or he's just irresponsible and can injure players. He's I maybe I shouldn't call it any specific players, but I can definitely think of some NBA players who I feel like kind of like a Draymond Green type guy who runs his mouth the whole time and the whole league hates him, but if he's on your team, then you love him.
Yeah, and it's like the situation where that player is just transferred to your team recently. So it's like, I hate this guy, but I'm glad we can use him, but I'm not going to enjoy it really.
Right. It's a decent analogy. I don't think it's all the way there, but it's decent at least. Yeah.
I just think that the psychology of it is very complicated, which you see in Dogman, where he's so mad at Logan, but then as soon as, I can't remember who it wasn't Shivers, it was someone else who it's like, oh, you're going to call yourself the King of the North now. And then Dogman was like, hey, shut up. Like, give him respect.
Oh, I think that's Red Hat at the end.
Yeah. Just that complicated relationship is really interesting.
Yeah. And then Dogman ends really melancholy, where he's kind of thinking about the friends he's lost. And he's like, what was this all for? Everyone's just gone back to the mud, and here I am now. And it's like, what am I doing?
And okay, so I think what Logan should have done, which would have been more in character for me, is Logan should have stayed and been the emissary to the Union. That would have made sense, because then he could still be working on becoming a better person. And he has Giselle there, who Giselle seems to like bring out this better side of him. And he's like said he doesn't really have anything back in the North, Maybe if Pharaoh would have, maybe she had an impact on his decision to stay or not.
But is it kind of like the Northern culture almost perpetuates this? It's like, he's the biggest and baddest warrior around, therefore he needs to be the king and be in charge of everything. So he doesn't even feel like he doesn't even really entertain that as an option.
Yeah. I think that would have been if he were to have more character growth, that would have been the logical position for him. Like, he would stay there. And if this were like a happier book, Giselle would have been the Aragorn type king, and then Logan would have stayed as his emissary, and Baez would have been like, I'm Gandalf and I'm running off, but I'll be back to give you more instruction. But I also didn't really get the sentiment. I mean, I kind of did, of the Northmen being like, why are we even here? Why are we fighting this fight? This isn't our fight. When the Union just fought a fight that wasn't theirs for them. I mean, they were fighting to get England, and then they were recalled, and West specifically made it so they could continue to fight for them. I mean, I guess it was still in the Union's interest, but it was like they just spent time and lives to help the Northmen. So I think it made sense to have that reciprocal. That was like part of the deal,
That seems like it makes sense until you're there, ready to start fighting, and people are killing each other, and you're like,
what are we fighting for?
Yeah. Why are we doing this again? I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
All right. So
I guess that leads us back to Baez.
Yeah, back to Baez. I feel like we kind of talked through all the other points. Did we miss anything with him? I guess we didn't specifically talk about the whole squares board conversation with Glocta. I think that's one of my favorite moments. I think we alluded to it, but it's got to be called out.
I think my biggest takeaway, and we've kind of mentioned this already, is just the hypocrisy of Baez, of where he's like, I live thousands, or no, I don't know how many lives of men. So you guys are insignificant ants to me. I see all your petty squabbles and they mean nothing to me. I have more important business to be on.
Mhm.
And all his business for this trilogy has been a petty squabble with
Yeah.
an old
Yep.
friend. So
Yep.
I think that is like the perfect ironic character arc. Um, that and just how masterful he is at executing his plans with the is it Valentin Burke, Valentin Bulk,
Valentin Balk. Yeah.
Valentin Bulk, the banks, and then him getting Jazal up to being king and getting the seed all working. Although like him, the seed thing, that was totally just Pharaoh who did that. But
Pharaoh
like
found it. Yeah.
finding it, yeah, he would have had that plan. I wonder what he would have done without
Yeah.
the
What would he
seed.
have done?
He had
It's a
lots of
good.
magic,
It's a
but
good question.
yeah. And I
Very,
wonder,
very fortunate for him.
well, and then also setting up the marriage with Jazal so that way he had that extra army
From Orso came in.
from
Yes.
Orso. Yeah. I don't know. He's just super arrogant and very talented and very petty. And I'm hoping the arrogance and pettiness at some point trips him up. But it's one of those things. It's like a snowball effect of once you have so much power, you get to a point where it's like so hard to topple it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Should we do our worst of the best? Do you have one?
worst of the best. I don't.
I have one. You can think.
Yeah,
You can think of
you
one.
go.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna talk about a moment in the book that was awesome, but there's like something about it that just seemed a little bit off or kind of took away from it. So I kind of held my tongue when we were talking about this earlier because I wanted to bring this up. But the whole duel with Fenris and the killing of Karib and everything, that was so cool. That whole the scene in the circle was cinematic, and finally fighting against Fenris was awesome. But it was just so vague to me. Like I know that Abercrombie is much more of a soft magic thing, and he doesn't really get into the mechanics of how things are working. But why are they there working for Bethod? What is Karib exactly? What are her powers, and how did they just kill her so easily? I mean, she did enchant Dogman, but Dow just snuck around behind and split her head open. The whole thing was just like a little bit of a letdown. We're like, okay, and now he won because they took down the shield. It was just like, yeah, it was like a Star Wars thing. Like, okay, they took down the shield generator, so now we're good to take down Fenris.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think part of it was supposed to be this humorous sense of this is going to be so terrible, and it was so terrible for maybe it wasn't meant to be humorous. I don't know. It was so terrible for Logan for such a long time, and then you see Blacked Out or not Blacked Out, Dogman, and who else was with them? Getting was it just him and Blacked Out?
I think
Yeah, I
Grim
thought
went
there's
with them as
yeah.
well.
So Grim, I think two of them were enchanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
yeah, it was Grim because Dogman was
yeah,
going to kill. Yeah.
yeah. And then just to have Blacked Out come out of nowhere and kill her, it was like this ironic, anticlimactic part, which I thought was good, but also it just leaves me wanting more. And I think that's my worst of the best, besides the whole sucking up fire, tucking it under your tongue that you never see again. That such wasted potential.
He does talk to spirits again, at least.
Yeah, he talks to spirits. Yeah. Well, he did it in the second book too.
Oh, that's right, at the very end. Yeah.
That was like his reason for going there.
Mm-hmm.
But just the whole idea of how much of the world is hinted at, and it's really cool, has this really cool history, and it's kind of a mystery of what really happened with Eos and Yuvins and the Maker and all that. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that like that isn't the point of the story, and so you're not really going to get a ton of that. To me, that's the worst of the best, because that is the characters are amazing, and that's like the most enjoyable part of reading. But the things that really hook me are these like I want to learn more about the lore and the history and the world and these like grander, more epic scale things, and just not really getting a lot of that. It's frustrating.
That's the Sanderson fanboy in you, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's like the epic fantasy, right? And I guess this wouldn't be really epic fantasy as much as.
I mean, it's grimdark, which is more. It's supposed to be a little more like realistic, hyper realistic.
but that doesn't always mean like not a lot of good backstory.
I'd still put it next to
Game of Thrones.
I'd still put this right next to epic fantasy in a bookstore.
Yeah, but I mean more in like I want to know more about what makes this world epic, and I'm not really getting that, except for the characters, which are so amazingly well done.
So a little bit of enticement for future books. If you haven't read them yet and you like don't want anything about them, then you can stop listening. But just like back of the book type stuff. So you're not going to get like a ton of additional lore stuff, but the world is going to get expanded. So Best Served Cold is over in Styria, which is where Orso is from, the guy who comes in. And that's kind of like a cool vengeance story with some new characters, and some old characters are going to pop up there. And then that is followed by The Heroes, which is the story of this battle that takes place in the north with, again, some new and old characters. And then that's followed by Red Country, which is almost like a Western crossed with a fantasy. And it's over in the old empire and just like the really uncivilized parts of the world. And again, some new faces and old faces in all three.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep reading. I'm a little sad that I'm going to have to temper my expectations when it comes to learning more about the lore.
But they're also they're just so enjoyable to read. Like the writing is brilliant throughout. The characters are awesome.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like it's been hard to find the motivation to start Best Served Cold because I know the main characters aren't the ones that I really am invested in right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, but
that's fair.
Yeah, definitely excited to continue learning more.
Some will be back in future books, especially the next trilogy.
My plan was, man, I've had so many plans this year. I should be on book 8 of Malazan right now.
Ha! Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, I'll at least read through Abercrombie to be ready for the last book in September. But I don't know if I'm going to be ready for that because
you'll have to read 6 books in a month and a half.
Yeah, and I need to
finish
7. I need to finish 2.
6.
I need to finish the next 2 foundation books to make sure we're ready to have that ready before, I think that comes out in October, the Apple TV series.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but we'll see what happens.
You best get reading, son.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you're pumped for Wisdom of Crowds. If you want to get more from Phantology, we have reviews of the standalones and of the next 2 books of the Age of Madness and of Sharpens. So we have individual reviews for all of Abercrombie's First Law books. So tune into those as you get pumped for Wisdom of Crowds. We are going to try to do a primer episode of sorts with Friends Talking Fantasy, our buddies over there who are huge Abercrombie fans, probably more so than any of us, and I'd say know a little bit more about the series. They've done individual breakdowns on specific characters even. So if you're really excited for Wisdom of Crowds, definitely check them out at Friends Talking Fantasy Podcast. And what else? Let's see, if you want to talk with us, you can do that on Discord. Invites are on the episode link. Let us know what series you like, what you want us to cover. Anything I missed? Should we just send them out now?
I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't
take Discord.
Don't take $1 million loans from banks that you don't know anything about. Might come back to bite you eventually.
Unless you need it to survive, which.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Phantology. If you'd like to let us know your opinions on all things sci-fi and fantasy, join our Discord. Invites are in the episode descriptions below. If you'd like to support the show, like these fine folks here, you can do that at patreon.com/phantology_books. Patrons get early access to new episodes, exclusive postings, and exclusive Discord benefits. But of course, just listening and watching and sharing with your friends and family is support enough. Journey before destination all.